Hello, denizens of YouTube. I'm Michael, and for now, this is Said Gaming. Today, I come to you with optimism. I have not really done much content this past month because I've been on the struggle bus. If you've seen any other videos, which you haven't because nobody watches them, but if you had, you would know that I'm having almost no luck climbing successfully in Marvel Snap. My first season in Pool 3, it's been rough. I started at level 70. I've been treading water over like 1,000 games. I've barely made it to 80. Just trying all the free to play Zabu stuff I can try. I don't really have cards that, you know, make a cohesive theme deck. So I was really excited to stumble across another content creator. His name's FreddyBabes. I haven't followed him before. I think he plays Gwent, maybe some Hearthstone. But I like following content creators that are, haven't been playing Marvel Snap since closed beta, alpha, etc. They don't have collection levels well into the maybe double digit thousands. Freddy, I think his collection level is right around kind of where I am, early Pool 3. This deck really struck me because one, I could build it, and two, he said it was meta breaking, and that's usually a lie. And I was very pleasantly surprised that it wasn't a lie. I've played a lot of the decks that content creators recommend you play if you're new to Pool 3 and you have a very limited collection, stuff like Spectrum Ongoing Destroyer and Sarah Miracle and even like Dino Zabu. And yes, these decks are fine. They can win, but they do not get a lot of cubes. They don't help you climb the ladder in a way that makes you want to play the game. You just chip away at it feels like 1/5 of a cube every game. And, maybe if you're a really great player, you can make it work, but that's not me. Granted, I've learned what the meta is kind of over the last month. Early on, I was just, oh yeah, he snapped. He isn't anything on board. And I'd get blown out. And luckily, getting blown out has taught me a lot of what to expect. But as I know what to expect, I still have to retreat so many games because I do not have those explosive turn 6 plays. I relied on like Leader and Magneto, but all those like linear decks just weren't working for me. So I was very excited to see Freddy come out with this deck, and it just works because you get to play, more than one card a turn. You can play Colleen Wing and then your swarms become free, and your opponent forgets that you're even playing them because you're not playing the traditional discard deck. They're looking for Apocalypse. They see Swarm. They don't think about just Swarm as like, here's a sneaky 6 power that's just coming to the turn for, coming into play on turn 6 for free. You got Zabu. Obviously, Zabu is going to get nerfed, but he's still a powerhouse and probably the card I should have been playing with this entire time. Arrow really pushes this deck over the limit. I think having Shang-Chi and Enchantress in the deck just can break the greedy decks. And Arrow is amazing. I think playing decks that relied on big turn 6 plays, Arrow didn't feel right in those decks, those like Leader decks and those Magneto decks. But here, she's kind of an alternative win condition. If you really went off early and your opponent didn't fill the lanes, Arrow can just sneak in and steal cubes. So I love her, and I love Chavez. I just love that Chavez is there on 6. I love that Okoye makes her 10 power so she can kind of compete with She-Hulk. And she just makes your deck a little more consistent. I think that's so valuable. And, I know there's tons of people that sing her praises. I don't think she's great in high-powered, high-octane, decks that are really going off. But I think in these, like, you have a plan your deck needs to accomplish, and if it doesn't accomplish that, your deck is floundering a bit. I think Chavez is a really great card. So that's Freddy's deck. You can go check out his video. I think he did a great job telling you why he played the cards he did. I think he's put this puzzle together perfectly. I don't think it's an oversell. I've played this over 150 games, winning well over half a cube a game, almost 60% win rate, which I am not a good player. And, I can't promise you the moon, but if you're looking to climb these last, dying days of this season, I highly recommend this deck. please check out the gameplay. I've got lots of games. Skim them if you don't want to watch it. If you get the gist of it, you got the deck list, you're still paying attention. But I've edited them down. I think they're concise. And I tried not to have any like gimmicky, oh, my opponent retreated, or I had like, you know, some sinister copying my cards and my deck just went off in an unfair way that my opponent didn't exploit. I think these are somewhat fair games against an opponent who was having success with their deck as well as I was having success with mine. And there's some snapping, which I rarely do. And I'm happy that I've had the success I have. So thank you, Freddy. And please enjoy the gameplay. Okay, here we go. First match, passing in turn 1. I think the tempo swarm here is the option when I have a turn 3 play. Usually like playing into the undisclosed lanes early on, especially with 2-drops and less. Danger Room feels pretty good to have snuck in there. Maximus on tempo rather, I think is perfectly fine here. Opponent playing Zabu. Really like Enchantressing Zabu on 4. I know it gets a lot of value, you know, on turn 4, but I think it's pretty important to cut it off. Seen a lot of Spider-Man decks as I climb past 90. Here, Arrow feels fine. I'm basically saying I want to give up on the right lane and try to win mid and left on turn 6. My opponent, without their Zabu, was unable to play, you know, 2 Spider-Mans. And my opponent's out. So, pretty standard, you know, reason to take Zabu out of the equation, I think. All right, starting match 2, Sunspot into the undisclosed lane. Pretty much my opener. We're going to see a lot of that. Quinjet seems like it can be in a lot of decks. I know it's traditionally like a Dino deck, but again, I haven't really seen a lot of Dino as I've climbed. But I have seen a fair amount of Quinjet. Zabu mid, you know, just feels pretty standard right here over Maximus. You're really trying to get Moon Girl value. But I failed to notice that my hand was going to be disappearing. Still get Drax back. Kind of a lucky guess here. Just Drax playing on curve. Maybe not ideal, but I had a good feeling they were going to try to compete with my Zabu mid when their right lane was pretty full. Titania is a weird card to play around. I guess my idea was to basically keep it and then try to let him take it back or just ignore the lane. And then here, figuring he was probably going to try to do something big, but doubling up my Shang-Chi's and Enchantress would be helpful. But ultimately, I kind of decided just to Chavez it and try to tie left, figuring I'm winning mid if he plays into right, and he can take Titania back, or I just win right and, you know, give it up and win on differential, which is what happens here. So it worked out. Okay, heading into turn 2 of game 3. Superflow lets me get Zabu out nice and early. I like the big house here. Zabu lets me kind of get under the restriction pretty easily. I see Collector here. Alarm bell should be ringing. This is a Dino deck. Not sure I'm really paying attention. Just I want to empty my hand for Moon Girl value, so throwing a Koye into Superflow with Zabu on board doesn't feel as bad as it might seem, especially with Lechagila over there that I definitely don't want to play into. At this point, you know, I don't think my opponent's going to be playing a Superflow, and I don't want to play into Lechagila, so I'm going to go ahead and just Drax for units on the board, or points on the board, rather. Same thing with Enchantress here. Seeing Devil Dino on turn 4, I think that's a mistake for my opponent. Playing Devil Dino early is just asking to get Shang-Chi'd. So I decided to snap here, kind of blow him out. Let's see, I think they reveal like 0 and Zabu, yeah. So an awkward turn 5 for my opponent. I'm not sure what 0 is doing in their deck. But I'm already ahead on 2 lanes here. Lets you get only down by 2. The thing I like about this deck is just having a lot of options on turn 6 of where to spread around your points. Opponent doesn't really expect it. And here they have a kind of a similar plan, utilizing their Zabu and dropping 3 4-drops that have been reduced cost. But at this point, it's a little too late. I'm already way ahead thanks to the tempo loss of killing Dino. And we pick up the win here, I think, pretty convincingly. Game 4 starts with the standard opener, Sunspot all the way right. Obviously, Savage Land, not something I'm really excited to see, but we'll work with it. Usually, when I see Colleen Wing on 2 with no 3-drop, I don't mind skipping her for just in case I top deck Swarm. And there it is. I think this is a great opener. This is kind of the ideal curve of my deck, to try to hit Colleen, Swarm, Zabu. Obviously don't have Zabu, which I think is the snap scenario. And seeing Thor here, I'm basically already figuring that the middle lane is about 14 power. I think that's where he probably put his Mysterio. So I figure, Drax mid, pretty good chance he plays mid here. Decides to pass, which is a surprise. And, then he snaps here, which I guess I probably should have considered a little more. But again, I figured this is just a She-Hulk pass, and I have Shang-Chi, so I'll just run with it. Drops Infinite. So basically, I'm winning the left lane easy with Shang-Chi. And the middle, again, thinking 14 power, and maybe I can sneak out Rickety Bridge. This is kind of like just really hoping Mjolnir doesn't show up. Probably should have thought about this one a little more, but I thought their Infinite snap was so cocky that maybe they don't have Mjolnir. So kind of get away with one here. We're going to tie Rickety Bridge, lose Titan, but not because of Mjolnir, and sneak out a win with differential and Savage Land. So a close one. Maybe further revision, not ideal, but we squeaked it out. Match 5 picks up on turn 2. This is one of my favorite matches. Get to see the full combo that I just talked about. Colleen on 2, Zabu on 3. There will be a Moon Girl on 4. Lots of swarms. The tricky thing about this is, trying to keep your hand from getting too full. But, the only thing that's not making this kind of perfect is having Drax. I guess Arrow would be kind of good, although the squirrels kind of ruin Arrow Girl potentially. Just watch the guys come down here. Zero deck. I saw a lot of this deck today. I don't know if this is the high 90s or this is, the hotness. Some streamers plugging it, but a lot of zero Typhoid Marys coming down. It's a real big tell when you see the 0 and the armor. So I was really excited to try out the combo of Enchantress Shang-Chi. Not something I think I've pulled off before. Again, something really Zabu makes happen. So he has priority. I'm really hoping I can try to snipe 2 things here. Would be great if Red Skull came down or something, but that might be a little bit of a stretch here. Opponent decides to Enchantress my Zabu, which doesn't really bother me at all. I mean, I'm not really counting on using Enchantress Shang-Chi next turn. Kind of happy that I got Enchantress and Shang-Chi out now. And I think this is where the deck kind of surprises people. Having this Chavez turn 6 play with these swarms kind of comes out of nowhere. I think people forget that you did anything with Swarm and Colleen Wing. So it's also great. I saw a lot of this turn 6 play today. Just people dropping Magneto on turn 6. Got me a couple times, but kind of got more used to it and knew that I should really be prioritizing filling my lanes if possible. So happy to sneak out that win there. Okay, this is an interesting one. 2 very restrictive bases right off the bat. Dark Dimension I do not like with this deck because of how much reveal I have. Morag, not terrible with the Zabu deck. You can often sneak some cards in there. But a lot of other decks, it's hit or miss. You know, it's not an I win button, but it's also not a crippling disability. Mindscape is a little weird. I feel like I get Chavez on 6 regardless, and as long as I don't give my opponent arrow, I usually feel okay about Mindscape. Opponent snaps here. I'm not really paying attention why. It's just so early. Kind of figure this this might be Maximus over there in Dark Dimension. Pretty standard 3-drop that you would want to play into a Dark Dimension. Storm coming down here really tells me this is most likely Silver Surfer, a deck I have not really seen much the last few days since the patch, really. I don't know if people are just tired of it. They're not. They've already climbed infinite with it. Playing Drax here, I totally expect to get Juggernauted, but at least he'll be 8 power because I have priority. Sarah comes down, so always scary. Basically, at this point, I'm thinking he's going to brood mid, so I'm happy to concede mid, and I feel like I can just jam Chavez over left, and I'll get, you know, to outscale his other 3-drop, his Maximus, and his Surfer. Didn't really do the math on that. It would have been kind of close. I guess Polaris showing up makes me feel a little bit better. I don't know what I was thinking because here comes Juggernaut. And luckily he puts the Chavez into Morag. If he would have thrown in Flooded, I would have lost. Ultimately, you know, Surfer is just such a tough deck to play. So much math you got to do. But, you know, I was a little blinded by him playing Brood and thinking I was just going to win it. And snuck it out. Risky bet pays off. Match 7, standard opener, Sunspot right. Udenheim, not good for my deck, but we'll work with it here. This matchup is going to feature one of the other staples of the higher ladder climb, the Lockjaw decks. Rickety Bridge doesn't feel great here. Lockjaw, I kind of like playing against Lockjaw. At least I feel like I have some answers with Shang-Chi. You know, Drax, I know where he's going to play as Lockjaw, right? Not this turn. This was an unusual play for my opponent, but I kind of understand what they were getting at. This is kind of just a Hail Mary here. I'm just going to arrow, steal away his Lockjaw targets, and just hopefully Udenheim kind of ruins his power in this lane. Don't really have a great plan. This is kind of like, if my opponent snapped, I'm out of here, but I'll give it a whirl and maybe RNG kind of falls my way. I figure, you know, he's going to be easily playing a Rickety Bridge because there's a Lockjaw deck. He's got all these cheap cards, right? And he decides to allow my Sunspot to live. Jubilee comes in here, pulls Captain Marvel, and that's kind of the end of it. Does get a nice Dracula pull, but surprisingly, Sunspot lives the entire game in Rickety Bridge. Not a standard Lockjaw battle, but enjoyed it. Next game's a little unconventional. We start with Triskelion. You know, it is what it is. Nothing great here. I don't even think I do play one of these cards. Sunspot right, it's my move. This is a rare situation where I do a tempo, just swarm, just let him go. You know, I figure I'm giving up on Colleen because I got other 3-drops in my hand. Naturally, I top deck Colleen. Tank for a while if Colleen or Cyclops is better. It turns out it's completely irrelevant. So saving minutes off of your life by editing that out. Zabu comes down. You know, not great. Not a game I really dying to stay in. I figure he's going to do 2 to Nivelier. Wong, bit of a surprise. Wong Zabu, not sure what this is. I've honestly never seen someone Wong Jessica Jones and completely forgot that she's an on-reveal ability. I literally arrow here just for a body, thinking I might suck something from Wong. Like maybe they were just going to Wong over Jessica. And then she gets huge, and I'm a little surprised. Luckily, I have Shang-Chi. Happy to see my opponent playing Drax, getting some Drax value. And the final turn comes down, and this is kind of a Hail Mary. You know, I always just like to stay in games when Shang-Chi's involved. Colleen left, not a lot of power, but I'm going to hang in there assuming my opponent cannot resist playing into their Wongbo. That's a Wong-Wombo combo, a Wongbo. And he snaps and I stick with it for some reason. Server, I feel like I got that beat. Like I don't care about mid. And Zabu getting a little bit of power doesn't bother me. So happy I see another thing I can Shang-Chi come down. Love you, Crossbones, but you're not going to make it. Opponent goes from destroying every lane to losing the game. I guess I figured that having extra cards in Nidvalir might help me squeak out a win there, so I hung in there. Probably, I usually retreat. A Wong snapping is usually a 100% retreat for me, but for some reason I couldn't not stick around and kill huge Jessica. All right, you asked for it. Here's the Zabulous win. I don't mean to spoil it, but standard opener, Sunspot right. We see Muir Island. I like Muir Island. I think this is the kind of base second dinner should do more of. I like competing over lanes more than, you know, being totally restrictive. It's really fun when you've got multiple lanes that you kind of want to be a part of. And here we have Muir Island and Asgard, two great bases. Obviously, this is a jam. We both know it. Stick your cards in there, get the power. But I deviate here. Surprisingly, I decide to Drax into Asgard because I want the cards. My opponent decides to fill Muir Island, which feels kind of bad, and then I see he's deathlocking it. So obviously a death deck. Really shouldn't have been a surprise it was death deck, but kind of surprised that he's blowing up all his cards and losing that bonus for now. But, you know, at least I know what to expect. Late turns, wave, death, She-Hulk, etc. A little scary right here. It just feels like maybe I abandoned left. I'm already pretty behind. So just kind of playing some tempo here, and I think Arrow is going to be the all-star here. Clearly, I don't care about Shang-Chi because I feel like I can get enough power with Arrow. I think that was my, I guess, Hail Mary play that I'm not going to win with a 4-cost Shang-Chi. I really need a 2-cost Shang-Chi and more power. So if I'm ahead in 2 lanes, then I can just arrow into his empty lane. I got an advantage. The very rare double snap for me. I never snap. I just feel like most decks just outgun me. And here we have the result I expected. You know, I figured he'd play 3 cards. I thought one of them might be leader, but She-Hulk, Death, Shang-Chi all getting pulled over. Well, no She-Hulk, but you know what I mean. She would have been pulled. And we get the win. All right, winding down. I'm sure you're tired of all this winning. Standard Sunspot right. You got a restrictive base lane. Can't play into it. So fun. Do a little weird thing here. I decide to play Colleen because I have Swarm in my hand and I don't want to top deck a Koye. So opting to not kill the rocks, which is a little suspicious, probably for my opponent, why I would not do that in a game where you can't play in the left lane. But it kind of pays off here. We got Morag. So obviously we're going to just put all our power into Sunspot this turn. My opponent floats, which is weird, but I mean, they got to play Collapse Mine, so this is a great Drax. Oh, look, it's She-Hulk. So that's a surprise. Feel pretty good about this. Yeah, you got She-Hulk in there, but I feel like I can really sneak a lot of cards in there, especially with Double Swarm. Still feeling confident. Not snapping because this is such a, you know, claustrophobic match. Being able to play kind of 1.5 lanes. So tying my opponent, and then he drops Claw, which honestly I've never seen outside of On Go Destroyer. I don't know what's happening. This is clearly in his deck. But, you know, come on, I'm up by 10 here. I'm going to drop 6 more. Like, I can't lose this, right? Like, Chavez is going to blow him out. Oh, Dr. Doom. So, my opponent, I like his deck, man. I like Claw. I like Dr. Doom. I like She-Hulk. Just playing some great villains here. And, yeah, this is not a win. Sorry, everyone. All right, last game. I saved the best for last. No, I didn't because nobody's still watching this. But I thought this game was interesting. Pretty standard opening. You've probably seen it before. Sunspot, right? Hood, he's probably not going to survive. Probably recognize this deck. Pretty easy. Zabu. We got Project Pegasus giving us extra power. Hand size is looking a little small right now. My opponent plays Wave. Feels like it's a little early for Wave. I don't know if Crimson Cosmos messed them up, but we both float it. So that's right. The rare turn 3 Wave float just happened. Playing Okoye because I'm not sure what my opponent is doing. He's killing everything. He's a murderer. He plays in a Space Throne, which seems a little early. So I'm kind of excited to see Demon drop here. I mean, I can beat that with Chavez. So, you know, I'm not sweating it. Drax is going to just punch him in the mouth right here, right? Bucky and Venom. And that's a lot of power. Drax might not be punching me in the mouth. But we got 8 power. We're down by 1. We're up by 10 on right. Feeling pretty good. And I decided to, yeah, let's just jam Space Throne. We can win this. And then I kind of feel like if he She-Hulks in death, I'm just totally dead in Crimson Cosmos. So this is interesting because I'm like, I'm behind. He has priority. I assume She-Hulk death, Shang-Chi mid, and, you know, I'm winning just about anything he drops because Sunspot's going to get a little extra power. So even if you threw She-Hulk, I mean, I guess they could have won if they had double She-Hulk. Sorry, She-Hulk and Death into the right lane, but I don't think anybody does that. Well, if you made it this far, I assume you learned something. I hope you're excited. I hope you can make this deck. I hope you can push like I have. It's been a breath of fresh air, actually being able to climb at 85 plus, halfway there through 90, 95. Hopefully I can make the Infinite Rush the last couple days here. But if you get this, give this deck a shot. I hope you have the cards. A lot of it is not, you know, interchangeable. I think this deck is needs to do what it needs to do, and the cards are in here that work. So hopefully you have Zabu. Hopefully you have Drax and Arrow and Colleen. But good luck out there, snappers, and we'll see you in the next one.